headed by the Secretary of National Defense, who was here also on stage with the President. So between these two government entities, the Climate Change Commission, headed by the President, and the NDREAM-C Council, headed by the Secretary of National Defense, which has an executive director who spoke earlier, the Undersecretary Pama, hopefully with the marriage of these two agencies, we can be more resilient. And so the devastation brought about by Typhoon Yolanda need not happen again. First of all, I wish to extend and congratulate Assistant Secretary Zenny Collinson for organizing this ASEM event, for the ASEM leadership, for this opportunity to share our country's experiences on the role of women in disaster risk reduction and management. Let me look around, and I think the majority of the participants are still men, unless my eyesight is failing me. And my role is to speak about women in DRR. As disaster risks abound amid our fast-changing environment, disasters affect yearly about 200 million people all over the world, half of them women or girls, and that's a quote. Although disasters do not discriminate between the young and the old, urban and rural, the rich or the poor, they impact on individuals and families disproportionately. The President mentioned that. If you were listening, really, the 20% poorest and the most vulnerable are the most affected by the storm surge, by the typhoons, by earthquakes, by natural hazards, which do not have to become disasters if we are prepared. And who are these 20%? There are indigenous people, 15 million of whom are of the 100 million Philippine population. They're the elderly and the handicapped, as the President mentioned. They're the women and the girls, those living in vulnerable communities all around the 1,600 municipalities and cities in our archipelagic nation of 30 million hectares and 100 million population. So these disasters do not clearly discriminate who are the girls, who are the women, who are the vulnerable, but somehow these are the weakest sectors and the vulnerable losing lives and suffering more. And in settings where gender inequality pervades, the situation becomes even worse for women and for girls. The World Bank reports that in Asia, women perish in disasters more than men. 61% in Myanmar in 2008, and 67% in the Indian Ocean tsunami in Banda Aceh, 95% in Bangladesh. This appalling reality can actually change. It can change if DRR efforts effectively deliver women from persistent vulnerability and gender inequality and empower them fully to make their families, their homes, their communities, their livelihoods more disaster resilient. It can change if we do not miss or if we do not ignore gender issues in designing and implementing DRR and management programs. It can change if we are not gender blind in our development actions or if we are not insensitive in the potential contribution of women in building resilience. I don't have to relate this again. More than 6 months ago, you were there yesterday. You've seen in pictures, in images, and Europe has come to our rescue 6 months ago. You've seen how lives have been transformed within that 6 months, but challenges still are there. You know very well that the city of Tacloban is the center, economic center of Eastern Visayas, but there are many other areas which were affected, even outside of Eastern Visayas. There's also Central Visayas. There's also Region 4B, which is Busuanga, part of Palawan. There's also my home province of Antique, which is actually in Western Visayas. Again, all the focus has been on Eastern Visayas, which has been greatly devastated. But the northern part of Iloilo, in Panay Island, the province of Antique was also devastated, in certain areas of Cebu. So we see that it's probably not just the Visayas, not just Eastern Visayas, but Central and Western Visayas as well. And Haiyan has seen or has shown us how vulnerable women are to disasters. More than 3.5 million women and girls were affected, according to statistics. 250,000 of them were pregnant. 169,000 were breastfeeding. Their distinct nutritional needs make coping with disasters even tougher for them. Also, displacement from their homes put them at greater risk of sexual violence and of falling prey to human traffickers. We have the Secretary of Social Welfare, who's also the co-chair of the AYACAT, the Interagency Council Against Trafficking. She and another feisty woman from the cabinet, the Secretary of Justice, they both co-chair the AYACAT. Why am I mentioning the AYACAT when we're talking about the RR? Because it has been proven that these syndicates prey on vulnerable women and children in disaster-prone areas. I think Dinky would bear me out here. And so there's a direct connection between the vulnerability of women, not just to physical and natural hazards, but the emotional and social vulnerability, because these disasters make them more vulnerable to these syndicates who prey on families, needy mothers and parents who sometimes innocently and even sometimes unfortunately willingly allow their children, women and girls, to be victimized by these syndicates in the worldwide scourge of human trafficking. Haiyan has also caused a loss of income sources for almost 6 million workers, 40% of whom are again female workers. These disaster impacts on women convey to us the importance of making development policies, plans, and programs gender sensitive. I'm glad that our Secretary of the NEDA Economic Development is here, and I'm sure he would agree with me, and they are doing it so that all our economic programs are not only sustainable and resilient, but also gender sensitive. So in the face of increasing disaster and climate risks, national and local development processes must involve women actively, particularly in planning and integrating gender perspectives in DRR and CCA. I'm shortcutting it, I'm sure you know what I mean. In the immediate aftermath of Typhoon Haiyan, among the first responders were women, Filipino women doctors, nurses. I'm sure you're familiar with our female nurses who serve all over the world, our paramedics and civilian volunteers. The Secretary General of the Philippine National Red Cross is a woman. Our Secretary of Social Welfare and Development is a woman. The woman in charge of this ASEM conference, the person in charge of the ASEM conference is a woman. The ISDR representative of the Secretary General, Margareta, is a woman. EU Commissioner Georgieva, and this representation, we are women leaders, I would like to think, in DRR and CCA. And there are many more who are nameless, faceless, probably not in this, as Cecil Alvarez. They're a very active woman also in an environment decades and decades ago. So are there many Filipino women who are in DRR, whether they are in positions in the private sector or in government. And countless Filipino women responded with almost total disregard of their own safety, operating in what was traditionally viewed as a province of man. We need actually to do more capacitation of women, not only as primary caregivers in times of disaster and economic distress, but also as part of the overall strategy on disaster risk reduction and management. To empower women is to reduce the vulnerability to disasters. Let me just cite some areas where women actually helped out in Haiyan. The international organization, which you may be familiar with, Action Aid, provided support to communities in Leyte, in northern Cebu, in eastern Samar, with women leading activities from planning, procuring, distributing, and monitoring of aid, including food packages, hygiene kits, repair kits, livelihood support, etc. The program has provided support to more than 160,000 survivors of Haiyan. This is village chief, a barangay chief in the province of Aklan. Again, Aklan is not mentioned, but it was also victimized by Yolanda. Aklan is a province in Panay, in the Western Visayas, which was also affected. Wilma Paloma led her community of 6,000 or 600 families towards recovery, having survived a strong storm 30 years before Yolanda. She prioritized setting up the village health center because providing health care is crucial after a disaster. Why am I naming this people you don't know and probably would never meet? Because what I'm saying is that if we have this people in every village, in every community, whether you come from Europe or from Southeast Asia, I think it would be easier and better for us so that the concept or embracing disaster risk reduction will be enhanced and will be made faster and easier. Wilma also mobilized her fellow villagers for Cash for Work projects. The Department of Environment and Natural Resources and the DSWD has a Cash for Work project to provide immediate employment for the victims of Haiyan. And this village worker did with World Vision, which you're all familiar with. With the help of the village council, she encouraged the entire community to join the recovery efforts and enjoined everyone to do their part to make the village whole again. We can see that women also prove themselves effective DRR managers. Just for your information, DRR, Disaster Risk Reduction Officers, are mandatory under the NDRIMC law, the National Disaster Risk Reduction Management Law of 2010, to be present in every of the 1,600 cities and municipalities all over the country. In the municipality of San Francisco in Camotes Island, I hope there could be a side trip to that, because the barangays and the puroks, which is even smaller than the village, the smallest political unit, were organized way before conferences on DRR were even thought about. In fact, in San Francisco, in Camotes Island, in Cebu, the Vice Mayor Al Arqueliano is a Sasakawa awardee of the United Nations, but 90% of his officers in charge of environmental protection and disaster risk reduction programs in each and every purok are women, since most of the male residents are focused on their jobs, making a living, etc. So we have a vice mayor who was a mayor, who's now a UN awardee. He's with me in most of my forum, and he works with Margareta Wallstrom as well. He has given his best practices experiences in Geneva. He's a man, but behind him are 90% women heading the puroks. That's probably a good template for other municipalities to follow. So this 2011 Sasakawa awardee for DRR, because of their purok system, it focuses on the vulnerability of every village in the municipality by mobilizing local resources in creating local and practical solutions based on the unique needs. What do I mean? They were at the center of Yolanda, at the center of the eye of the storm. You're asking me, were there casualties? Zero. So in my earlier breakfast meeting with Margareta, she said, it is a good example or template perhaps, not to pinpoint political blame on anybody, but to see, why is there a municipality in Camotes, which was also hinulugan, how do you say it, the eye of a storm was also there. But what did Al Arqueliano do? Linikas niya ang tao. He moved the people voluntarily on their own. They did not ask for foreign aid or from money from the national government. They did not blame Dinky Suliman or any national official. On their own, they had their baon. Baon means they wrap their own food. They have their own pre-positioned evacuation sites. The women nag, Filipino women are naggers, and they have a good, the men are laughing because they know their wives. That's true. And they have a mayor and vice mayor and barangay captains with political will who say, the president already announced it 24 hours on national television. The DOST Pag-asa, Secretary Montejo, we're not lacking in great, brilliant scientists. We're not lacking the PIAs here. Secretary Coloma is here. We already announced it. Now, what do you want us to do? All the cabinet members, senators, and congressmen and mayors to pull everybody out? Come on, DRR has to be embraced by each and every of the 100 million Filipinos. So, what did Mayor Allen and his 90% women do? They went, baon, they brought their own food. They didn't pin the blame on Pinoy or on anybody, but they were prepared. Did anybody die? No. See? They're quiet. Perhaps it's also instructional that you visit Camotes Island and see what they have done here. They have been quietly exhibiting what embracing DRR means. So there's zero casualties. Again, not to blame anybody. What I'm saying is that let's look at lessons learned, both the good and the bad lessons. And not too far away from here, the Sapinit Watershed Settlers Association, composed of women residents of the area, established a nursery filled with Nara and mahogany seedlings in coordination with the Philippine Disaster Recovery Foundation. That's a private foundation. The women members tilled the land, prepared the watershed, planted seedlings. This effort is aimed at helping to restore the devastated Marikina watershed. Why am I saying this? Because before, the funds was Calamity Fund. And because of the NDREAMC law, we allow the use of the Calamity Fund for pre-disaster activities so that preparedness is part of the utilization of the local government funds. In the coastal barangay of Talokgangan in the province of Iloilo, women are at the forefront of rehabilitation efforts, covering 3.5 hectares of mangrove forests. What initially started as a male-dominated organization in 1996, that Talokgangan Concerned Citizen Association has become, by 2010, a mostly female organization with a mission of restoring, preserving, and creating opportunities to save Banate Barotac Bay from further deterioration. The association was organized through the assistance of the Banate Barotac Bay Resource Management Council, an interlocal government unit alliance among the municipalities of Barotac Nuevo, Anilao, Banate, and Barotac Viejo in the province of Iloilo, in the Western Visayas, in the island of Panay. Again, the Fellowship for Organizing Endeavors initiated DRR projects in Cebu City. These include a rip-wrapping project in Barangay Kalunasan, tree planting initiatives in Bulacau, and household-based solid waste management in Barangay Apas. Why am I mentioning this? Because this is how we should start. We can keep on debating and talking about policies and talking about cooperation of regions in the world, but all of these must be embraced in the local level. In all of these projects, women were not content with just being supporters. They were also involved in project management for riprap construction. The women outnumber the men in their tree planting activities, and women were more zealous in the planning workshops on waste management. That's not my statement, that's a quote. So if it sounds a bit biased for women, that was quoted from the report. I am sure that there are similar, more inspiring stories in other countries, and perhaps in the next 2 days you can share those lessons. All of these stories convey just one simple message. Women are no longer willing to just stay in the sidelines. Stereotyped, gendered roles have no place in the critical battle against disaster risk and climate change. The potential contribution as well as effective leadership role of women in reducing disaster risk and building community resilience must be recognized, encouraged, and supported. Let us provide and ensure the pathways for the inclusion of women in disaster risk reduction and management efforts as active participants, leaders, and decision makers. To harness the strength of women in reducing social vulnerability and increasing local capacity is to ensure the sustainability, the inclusivity, and the resiliency of local and national development pursuits. And to this end, let us align the institutional mechanisms for DRR with the policies that address gender issues, including livelihood development, women's welfare and development, protection from violence, anti-trafficking in women, just to name a few. Let us also ensure that designated sectoral agencies for the welfare and development of women, children, the aged, and persons with disabilities work closely and constructively with disaster management authorities. Let us recognize and empower women as agents of solutions and resilience, indispensable holders of valuable knowledge and skills, and able leaders of change from the grassroots level to the global stage. These let us pursue altogether to achieve the meaningful change the Filipino people truly deserve. And allow me once again to welcome all the delegates and the participants of ASEM today. Thank you. Mabuhay.
Yes. May we now call on Secretary Dinky Soliman, Secretary for Social Welfare and Development, to take the floor. Thank you.
A pleasant good morning still. Nearing noon. Again, my welcome to colleagues who believe that disaster risk reduction is primordial in the survival of this planet. My colleagues in Cabinet, visitors, friends, a pleasant good morning. First, let me thank ASEM for giving the opportunity to present on behalf of our government the role of the national and local government